Following another ugly loss on the road, this time in New England, is it time to ask hard questions about Dave Canales? I'll answer that question among other listener questions on this weekly Wednesday mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We're back once again here on a Wednesday, and every single Wednesday throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do after the game on Sunday against Miami is either at me or DM me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. Then next week, I'll be right back here answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions right here on Locked On Panthers. A week ago, everybody was happy, excited, and hopeful about the Carolina Panthers could do following a 30-0 beatdown at home against the Atlanta Falcons. 1 week later, and y'all are anything but happy as people are upset, irate, and asking questions about the state of the Carolina Panthers, and in particular, questions about their head coach, Dave Canales, now sitting at 6-15 in his first 21 games as the head man here in Carolina, coming off of a 42-13 loss against the New England Patriots. All too familiar scenes we saw up there in Foxborough. Let's start off today with Tanner, who asked, if Dave Canales doesn't get fired this season, is it time for him to give up play calling to his OC, Brad Idzik? He claimed he was building an offense in collaboration with Bryce Young to put together plays he wanted. The execution is so inconsistent, and you can tell Bryce isn't happy with the plays being called. Or at the end of the day, is it the same? The plan is good, but the players are not executing. Now, I'll give Dave a lot of credit. After the game, when they got blown the hell out, and they were awful on offense, terrible on defense, putrid on special teams, he took full responsibility, which in that situation, you really have no choice as the head coach. And he said as much, saying, when something like that happens, where they lose in all three phases of the game, the common denominator is me, Dave Canales. He took the blame and the brunt of the responsibility from that loss. Now, of course, the players, they did their part, like Derek Brown saying you can't win 30-0 and then get your ass whooped the next week, 42-13. They took responsibility, which they have to. They're the ones out there playing. They're the ones out there not executing, as you bring up, Tanner, something we heard constantly on Sunday, even on Monday, when Dave spoke to the media, when Shaw Smith-Wade spoke to the media, Tetairoa McMillan spoke to the media, and Turk Wharton spoke to the media, the same common refrain of execution. It was lacking on Sunday, which then you ask, why did you not execute? They will tell you, well, I don't know. We just didn't get it done, because what else is there to say? Because if they had the answer, then they would have done it on Sunday and not lost 42-13 against New England. Now, I'm not putting Dave Canales on the hot seat 21 games into his tenure. I will say, if it continues to look like it did on Sunday, then yeah, eventually he will not be the head coach here in Carolina. But it's still early for me at this point in time to sit here and talk about Dave Canales in a situation where if he doesn't start turning things around, he will not be the head coach in Carolina. But as far as the play calling situation here with the Panthers, it is obvious that there is some sort of disconnect with the offense to start off the season. We saw it click late last season, and we have not seen that momentum carry over to this fall, which I don't really believe, just because they played well in week 18 and looked awesome offensively, that come week 1 in Jacksonville, they were going to look exactly the same. Things change. Players change. The environment around changes. So I was not expecting to see what we saw at the end of last season immediately happen this year. But my hope was, with a full off season, together the continuity on the offensive line with Bryce Young back there, adding in Rico Dowdle, having Chuba Hubbard back, looking at some of the wide receiver additions, that they could get there quicker than, of course, they got there a year ago in 2024. But at this point in time, that has not happened, which has people asking whether Brad Idzik should be the play caller. Now, Dave Canales was asked about this on Sunday following the game. He said, quote, "I believe that I'm the right person to be able to push our concepts and our schemes forward. I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. Execution-wise, am I calling the right plays rhythmically for the guys who have success based on what the defense is doing to us on that day? That's something that I'll definitely look at." Though right now when I watch this offense, I just don't see, obviously, the execution, but somewhat of the creativity. And there's even times where you just question, why in this situation are you running the ball? Like in 2-minute drill, where constantly he has handed the ball off on 1st and 10, and every single time it has been an unsuccessful run, and they have had no sense of urgency afterwards, and it's gone from fumble to punt to punt to punt. Now, the one time where they did have that fumble, they were moving the ball into Jags territory, and Bryce made a mistake week 1. But other than that, there has not been a lot of just confidence in the offense to go down the field and try to score. Maybe it's because Bryce Young fumbled week 1, and Dave Canales has not felt comfortable asking Bryce in that situation to try to move the offense forward before the half to put points onto the board, which I don't love, but that's what's been happening. The third down calls, or where you're running the football on 3rd and 10, and then punting from your opponent's 43-yard line. I don't like that. The only receivers involved right now is Tetairoa McMillan. Now, of course, Xavier Legette's not around. When the last time he was here on the field, they tried to get him involved, and it didn't really work out. So there's just something with what's happening with this offense where things aren't really working out to a high level. And you can talk about the run game. Go back to when Dave was in his only season as an OC there in Tampa. They were not a good running team. The Panthers were better last year, and a big problem with the inability to run the ball so far as having it be a big part of this offense, the fact that they keep getting behind in these games, and it's hard to run the ball and to establish that when you're not ahead. But even when they were ahead, you didn't really feel like you saw a ton of that to the level that you would like, at least from the message he gave when he first got here to Carolina about being stubborn about running the football. So I don't think it's time for him to change to Brad Idzik. I also don't know how much is going to change if that happens. It's not like Dave's not going to be a part of the game plan. It's not like he's going to be in Brad's ear. Now, Brad has experience calling plays in the preseason and during training camp, which I think is a great thing, because if things turn around here in Carolina and this becomes a winning organization under Dave Canales and under Brett Tillis and Dan Morgan and, of course, David Tepper, then guys like Brad Idzik will be asked to be interviewing other places and could potentially get another job, and he would at least have been a play caller, granted in the preseason and training camp, but have that experience. So I like that's something that Dave has brought over from his time spent under Pete Carroll in Seattle, but I don't necessarily think that just because Brad Idzik comes in here, things are going to magically change. They're not going to magically have Robert Hunt out there. They're not going to magically have Austin Corbett, however you want to feel about him, out there on the offensive line. If they don't have Coker, and if they don't have Legette playing the way he needs to play, it's not really going to change too many things. And if they keep turning the ball over, not executing, then it is what it is. But we'll see. I would think that most of the time for coaches, unless things are just so bad, that he would be given the opportunity to go then hire probably a new DC if the defense continues to struggle like it did on Sunday, and it has at points in times really over the last 2+ seasons under Rogero Vero. That would be what what Dave Canales would be asked to do first, would be to go get a new DC. Now, the thing is, if he's on the hot seat, what defensive coordinator is going to uproot their family and come here to Carolina? Much like when Matt Rule had to hire a rock star OC, according to Jake Glazer of Fox, they ended up with Ben McAdoo, because no one wanted the job, because no one wanted to move their family to Charlotte. And then you saw 5 weeks into the season, Matt Rule was fired. And then they had to go find another job the next year. So it would be difficult if things don't work out and there's not assurances at least given that this is going to be more than a 1-year job for him to be able to hire somebody better in the offseason. And then scheme change, will know who knows how that works out. But yeah, he's got a lot to figure out at this point in time. Let me take a quick pause because we went long on that one. Plenty of other things I want to go over here that y'all have asked me today. So let's take a quick pause here and come right back in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Okay, got a couple more questions here about the state of the organization under Dave Canales. Over to Bryson now, saying, in 21 games, Dave Canales has been here. Do you believe he has ever outcoached, he puts in quotes, a team he has played? And do you believe that he has shown any growth as a head coach? My answer would be no for both of those. Just wondering your thoughts and opinions. I will not sit here and say that Dave Canales has not outcoached anybody since he's been here, because you look back at the game, hell, against Arizona last year, I thought he did a great job in that game. Las Vegas, in that week 3 game, when we saw the offense at high function with Andy Dalton out there slinging it for 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, I thought they did a great job in that game. Did a great job last year in week 18 against Atlanta. But there's been plenty of times where you look at it, it's like, man, they got thoroughly out schemed. Go back to week 1 against New Orleans last year, not be able to pick up the same blitz. You go look at week 2 here this season, same kind of scenario. Couldn't pick up the blitz against Arizona. Maybe it didn't pop up on film. I don't know. It was early in the season, but still, like, there were situations like that where it's like you didn't adjust. Your team, like on Sunday, went out there, lost in all 3 phases of the game. You got out coached, got out schemed, got outworked throughout the week. That's clearly what happened in those scenarios. And as far as his growth as a coach, he had to grow up real fast. Remember, he decided to bench Bryce Young after 2 weeks. He said after the game on that Sunday, that week 2 loss against the Chargers at home, that Bryce was the quarterback, looked at the film, looked at the locker room and said, man, I can't keep Bryce out there and have these guys believe in me and believe in what the mission is. So he sat him. So, yeah, I think he certainly has grown and shown some some balls to make the decisions that he's made here in Carolina. But overall, it has not been great. He's 6-15. You are what your record says you are. That's what Bill Parcells once upon said. But you look at those 15 losses, man, 9 of those losses, in my opinion, have been non-competitive. 47-10 last year against New Orleans. Didn't get a single stop defensively all game long. 26-3 against the Chargers. Weren't good in that game. 36-10 at Chicago. The Bears, who also finished off last season 5-12. 40-7 at Washington. Embarrassing. 30-14 against Dallas. Not competitive in that game. 48-14 at Tampa. Yeah, you didn't have any running backs, but really? 48-14, 26-10. Week 1 against Jacksonville. And then on Sunday, 43-12 at New England. And if you look just at the average margin of defeat for the Panthers in those 15 losses during the Dave Canales tenure, 18.2 is the average margin of defeat. They're losing by 3 scores every single time. Not every single time, but on average when they lose these games. Look at other Panther coaches in history. Frank Reich, that lasted 11 games, and his teams on average lost by 12 points. Ron Rivera, his teams lost on average by 11. Same thing with Matt Rule, 11.4. Rivera's 11.1. John Fox, 12.6. George Seifert, who went 1-15, 10.9. He had a lot of 1, 2, 3, and 4 score losses during that 1-15 season. Dom Capers, who's on the staff right now as a senior assistant, took over an expansion franchise, 10.85. The best of any Panthers head coach in the 30-plus years of Carolina Panthers football as far as average margin of defeat. Now, you look at that and you're like, man, they lose by double digits every time they lose. Like, typically in football, man, when you lose these games, you get out coached, you get outplayed, you get outworked, and sometimes these things happen. But this is also an organization that's never had back-to-back winning seasons, so that really shouldn't be that surprising when you see that number. Now, it was a little surprising when I looked up those numbers on Sunday evening, because, like, damn, it's really been that bad. But for you to be, and that's Dave Canales, a touchdown worse in every single loss than every coach in the history of this organization, that's not good. That's concerning. So, yeah, he's getting outcoached a lot, according to those numbers. Adam asking about David Tepper and his mindset right now. Adam saying, did you see the video of David Tepper leaving the field on Sunday? That looked like the face of someone who will be making some sort of changes if this continues. Thoughts? Well, yeah. If they keep losing 42-13 and go out there and lose 26-10, 48-14, 47-10, 36-10, 40-7, and have those non-competitive losses, yeah, this will not last much longer for Dave Canales. Again, I'm not putting him on the hot seat. I don't think that we're not there yet. But looking at it right now, it has to get better. They have to find consistency, and they need to be able to turn things around. Now, getting healthier will help, but every team in the NFL is banged up. Look around the league 4 weeks into this. But damn, man, because I'll just say this. If somehow things go off the rails where they lose to Miami, who's a disaster, they lose to Dallas, they lose to the Jets, who right now, unfortunately, this organization, since Tepper's taken over, that's their peer. That's the other worst team in the NFL since Tepper took over. The New York Jets, who at least have a Super Bowl. They do have that, but it's the Jets, man. You don't want to be on the same level as the Jets ever. But that's what this organization has been turned into because of Tepper's decision-making. So if they somehow find a way to go lose to Miami, lose to Dallas, lose the Jets, sit at 1-6, it's already going to happen anyways. But that stadium is going to be 75% Bills fans. Let's just be honest. It's going to be a Bills home game by a considerable margin. And if they get their ass kicked, which they're probably going to lose anyways, no matter if they win the next 3 games or not, they ain't beating Buffalo. Then that looks like what happened in against San Francisco a couple years ago. Remember when it was a Niners home game? Panthers got blown out. Baker got hurt. Rule got fired the next day. Because if it goes off the rails, then yeah, you kind of got to pull the plug. So I don't expect them to go out there and lose the next 3 games and look bad losing to the Dolphins and to the Cowboys and to the Jets. Like, I think they have a chance to certainly go out there and win 2 out of 3. Like, I would think for Carolina, like, they need to find a way to win 2 out of 3. So then you're sitting at 3-4. And then unfortunately, you're probably going to lose to Buffalo. You're going to lose to LA as well, the Rams. And you're sitting there at 3-6. But like, those are winnable games. Just like I thought Sunday was a winnable game, and you get slapped in the face. And it's like, well, damn, guess same old Panthers, right? So we'll see. But they get blasted by the Bills. They go out there, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Cowboys, lose to the Jets. The Jets? The Jets killed Carl Jets? Yeah, those Jets. All bets are off, man. Because 1-7, stadium takeover, even though they're going to make the most money they're going to make all year long with that Bills game. And I don't think Tepper's going to be ashamed of that at all, considering all the Buffalo, everyone from Buffalo lives here. They love Buffalo, but yet I guess they ain't got no jobs up there. Interesting. But yeah, no, he's not on the hot seat. But if things go sideways, who knows what David Tepper will do. Adam Thielen, he went back home, but they're not really using him. Feels like he could be used here in Carolina. Did the Panthers make a mistake? I'll answer that question here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Okay, enough about the state of the organization and Dave Canales, David Tepper, and how all that may work out. Let's discuss the wide receiver core, because a lot of y'all were asking me about that this week. Ethan, he got a question in asking, looking back on the trade now, what is your opinion of the Adam Thielen trade? I hate to see him sit on the shelf gathering dust for the Vikings, while his presence would be greatly welcomed by the Panthers this season. I understand the draft capital made it borderline impossible to decline, and the Panthers have been without Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker to fill the void he left, but Bryce really seems like he needs that reliable guy who could eat up the middle of the field, pick up first downs. The offense needs to be able to score points past the opening drive. Yeah, Adam Thielen is collecting dust all right up there in Minnesota. So far, through 4 weeks, he has 4 receptions for 37 yards and has only been targeted 8 times. He only played 12 snaps out of the 76 on offense on Sunday, and the Vikings lost over in Ireland. That was terrible. I don't know why I even tried to do that. But he has become wide receiver number 4 because Jordan Addison, he's back from his 3-game suspension. Jalen Naylor, he's back healthy. And, oh, yeah, they have that guy, Justin Jefferson, who is outstanding. Now, the Carolina Panthers, they got a good offer. Or at least an offer that Dan Morgan felt like he couldn't pass up for Adam Thielen. They were able to go out there, and they got a 5th-round pick for next year from the Vikings and a 4th-round pick in 2024 from Minnesota. And then they gave up Adam Thielen and a conditional 2026 7th-round pick and a 2027 5th-round pick. They felt like that 4th, 5th-round pick, Dan Morgan said the day after when he spoke to the media that they wanted basically a 4th-rounder, and they were able to get that when trading Adam Thielen back home. And Adam was also interested in going back. Now, every time you'll ask me these kind of revisionist questions, I always make sure to go back and listen to what I said, because I don't want to sit here and be blowing smoke when I said something differently and then now come back and be like, oh, well, actually, no. So what I said throughout that entire process and throughout the entirety of the rumors surrounding Thielen potentially going back to Minnesota, my preference was for the Panthers to keep Adam for the beginning of the season and to wait and see what they actually had at wide receiver. Because while Tetairoa McMillan was in position to be what he's been so far this season, you didn't know that he was going to be that. And Xavier Legette, there was questions of how he was going to develop, and so far he has not played well when he's played. He's been out the last 2 weeks. And then Jalen Coker, he was looking pretty good, but also you got to ask yourself, what kind of steps was he going to take? Now, I also understood that if they got the right deal, that they did have 3 young players in McMillan, in Coker, and also in Legette that you would like to get out there immediately. But I was more hopeful that those guys would go earn the job as the season played out, and Thielen would then be devalued in Carolina because of that. But he's already been devalued in Minnesota because their guys got healthy. Not necessarily that those guys just kind of outplayed him. They just got healthy and they stepped right back in the roles, which I always felt like it was a weird thing that the Vikings were like panicking early in the year to get Adam Thielen to help out, just for them to barely play him 4 weeks into the season, and for him not to have been an impact player even when he was out there over the course of the first 3 weeks without Jordan Addison. So that was kind of goofy to me for Minnesota. Now, you get to go back home. It's a nice story, I suppose, all that. But, yeah, I think Carolina obviously could use him right now because of the injuries. Now, we still need to let the season play out, let XL get healthy, let Jalen Coker get healthy and on the field for the first time, and then we'll see what those guys look like next to McMillan, and we'll find out what Hunter Renfro's role will be moving forward in this offense, as that's kind of diminished over the last 2 weeks, as he's not made much of an impact since that second half there against Arizona with the 7 receptions, 48 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which was great to see for him in his comeback here in the NFL. But I want to wait and see. But yeah, they could have used Adam, but they also had no clue that Jalen Coker was going to get injured. And that's one of the revisionist things that you can't sit here and be like, well, you shouldn't have made a trade because, yeah, well, no one knew that Coker was going to get hurt the next day at practice. And that is tough that happened. but still plenty of time. And the hope was you were going to phase him out anyways and probably move on from at some point in time. They got the good deal. It worked out in that manner. Minnesota's not using him. That's weird. But certainly you would have loved that Adam Thielen if you would have known that Coker was going to get hurt and Leggett was going to be bad and then get hurt. But there was no way knowing those situations were going to play out. Moot. I never got this guy's name. Always give me your name, your real name, because I know a lot of people have a different name on Twitter and Blue Sky for whatever reason. But Moot, I guess it's smart because you want to get fired. I know people get fired all the time for things they say on social media. Moot, he says, with Adam Thielen being traded, Jalen Coker being injured, and Xavier Leggett not producing as expected, is the pick for Tetairoa McMillan looking better and better each week as he has done well in the first 4 weeks of his career? Well, yeah, it's pretty clear that they needed him based off of how XL has played. We haven't seen Coker, of course, this season. But, yeah, I felt like in the offseason, Carolina really needed to find a way to get a number one wide receiver. My preference for the organization was to get T. Higgins. Talk about that ad nauseum for like 3 years. That never worked out. He's still in Cincinnati. But my hope was that they would get a veteran to fill that role. I never imagined that they would look into the draft where didn't really love the wide receiver class coming out this year and to get somebody. But they decided with the 8th overall pick to get McMillan, and that was their guy the whole time, according to them. Of course, that's what they're always going to say. But yeah, he's been great. And considering the fact that, yeah, Leggett's not been good, Coker's been out, they traded away Thielen, Hunter Renfrow hasn't been super consistent, which is not surprising. Dave Canales cut him for a reason. He didn't think he was ready, and he's shown Dave to be pretty right outside of just that second half comeback, those 2 touchdown receptions in the desert. Yeah, T-Mac's been awesome for them, and he clearly is the number one receiver. I think he has the chance to be better than what DJ Moore was here in Carolina. I thought DJ was a good player. Never thought he was a great player, a true number one caliber player in the NFL. I think that McMillan can be that, and he was the best of the options available. Yes, Emeka Egbuka is off to an outstanding start in Tampa. He is the all-time leading receiver at The Ohio State University, so it should not be surprising to anyone who watched him back in college up in Columbus, but better situation that he's got down there in Tampa early on in his career. But McMillan, he's been good, and yeah, really smart pick by Carolina, it looks like. Yeah, you could have looked at them going out there and addressing other areas, but this very clearly was a big need, and that's played out that way so far. Last question comes from Alex, and this was going to be the final segment because I really dug deep into this one. He says, does it ever make you sick to think there could have been a world where Baker Mayfield, Christian McCaffrey, and Brian Burns were all still on the Panthers in 2025? Is there a way to fire ownership? Of course, there's not a way. Well, there's a way. Your owner has to do some pretty scuzzy things, which we have seen happen here before. We've also seen happen in Washington and other parts in the NFL. But David Tepper has not done anything to lose this organization, even if he has done really not a great job hiring and conducting himself in certain situations. As an owner of the Carolina Panthers, the man is not some reprobate who's done a bunch of terrible things and who should not be owning a team. I know the terrible thing he's done is that the team's not been good since he's been around. I get it. But the Teppers, I think overall for the community here in the Carolinas are a positive. The football team has not been great. The other football team, the World's game, the beautiful game, they're actually pretty good. So, can find some joy there. I will not do that, but you guys can. Let's go over this. Baker Mayfield. Rehashed this, 10 days ago? After the win up in New York against the Jets, the Bucs beating the Jets, he was talking about Steve Wilks. Yeah, this was personal to me because, Steve Wilks, he cut me, and Hassan Reddick, he was upset because of the chaos. Oh, yeah, the chaos of him getting traded there and then refusing to play because he wanted the money. Like, I don't know why Joe Douglas traded for him if he wasn't planning on paying him, but okay, whatever. You guys are aggrieved because it didn't work out with the Jets. Shocker. And then, Baker didn't work out here in Carolina with Steve Wilks, which Steve was the interim. And Steve responded to that last week being like, well, I was the interim head coach, and maybe you haven't been around for a while, but typically the interim doesn't have a lot of say. And if I did have say, I wouldn't have traded our best player. Well, we'll get to that momentarily. But the thing with Baker is and I've said this multiple times, and I said it throughout the process there. The Panthers should have traded for Baker Mayfield on day 2 of the draft a couple of years ago in 2022. They did not come to terms with Cleveland, did not work out as far as how much of the salary is going to be paid by each team, and they ended up taking Matt Corral, who could not play football. And then later on, as they were still looking for true competition to Sam Darnold, because they knew that Matt Corral could not play football, even though they drafted him in the 3rd round, traded up to get him, mind you, which is insane. They decided on July 5th, as I was leaving the golf course in Hilton, I had to ruin my day, and to trade for Baker Mayfield right then and there. He couldn't get a playbook for weeks, y'all. And then once he got to training camp, they had a quarterback competition. Even though they spent the entirety of the offseason trying to move on from Sam Darnold by going after Deshaun Watson's nasty ass and then trying to trade for Baker, not getting it done, then finally trading for Baker, they're like, okay, let's have a quarterback competition. In the NFL, like a legit quarterback competition. This isn't like 2 young guys like Spencer Rattler and freaking Tyler Shuck down in New Orleans in a terrible team. Like, this is year 3. We got to win quarterback battle. Like, what the hell? And then they took the first 2 weeks of the preseason to figure it out. Came week 3, like, all right, fine, Baker, you're our guy, even though he was the guy the whole freaking time. And what do you know? It looked bad to start the season because he wasn't here during the offseason, because he had to split reps. And they didn't do right by him by getting him here in time. And yeah, I came out and said it's not going to work out with Baker Mayfield. Yeah, because he hadn't been here long enough. And the Panthers were not in a situation with a coach on the hot seat and with obviously organizational change coming to then hand him another contract to come back to next year where he'd be learning a new offense. Obviously, it worked out for Baker. Happy for him. Always been a fan since that Friday night. He was a true freshman walk-on at Texas Tech and lit up SMU. Love the guy. But come on, man. Don't sit here and blame Steve Wilks. Now, it has been told to me that, yes, Steve Wilks, he obviously had Baker as his 3rd quarterback. PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, those are going to be the top 2. Sam obviously starting. And Baker was not going to be the top guy. And Baker wanted to be released. He asked for it, and they released him. So, yeah, he was not going to start for Steve Wilks. And it's been told to me that, yeah, Baker was probably never going to play for Steve Wilks. All right, it is what it is. But come on, he didn't cut you. He did you a favor, if anything, because you went to L.A., had success on that Thursday night, and you got your career back. As far as Chris McCaffrey goes, because Steve did say, if I were in charge, I wouldn't have traded our best player. Nice shot at Scott Fitter, by the way. I had to go back and listen to what I said about CMC the day he got traded, or I guess the day after he got traded, because it happened at night. I saw it and I went to sleep. I was like, screw that. I'm not talking about that right now. And I talked about that Friday before heading up to Providence for my buddy's wedding. And I was conflicted because obviously a great player, their best player, but also a running back. And y'all know how I feel about running backs. They were paying CMC a lot of money. They were a bad football team. Rule had been fired. He had only played the prior 2 seasons 10 games and missed a lot of time. And there was questions just about, is he going to be able to hold up? And when you're sitting there, do you really need to be paying a running back that much money? And do you need to keep him around when you know if you trade him, you're going to get a pretty good deal, then you could use to move up for a quarterback? Like, those are my thoughts. So it made sense to offload him to San Francisco. And they traded him, and they were able to get back a 2023 2nd-round pick and 3rd-round pick and 4th-round pick, and then a 2024 5th-round pick. Now, what they did with those picks is really what's disturbing about all of this. So clearly they were going to use some of that to trade up for a quarterback. The 2nd-round pick, pick 61, that got used in the trade with Chicago to get up to number 1 and take Bryce Young. You look at picks in the 3rd round and 4th round, those were used to trade up for DJ Johnson. Yeah, they traded those 2 picks to move up for DJ Johnson, who has not been good at all. And then the 2024 5th-round pick, that was actually used in the Brian Burns trade. When they traded Brian Burns to the Giants, they swapped that pick with another 5th-rounder with the Giants, and then they used that 5th-rounder, a part of their trade package, to move up into the 1st round to get Xavier Legette. So they traded away Christian McCaffrey, and in return, they got Bryce Young, who we're still asking questions about. DJ Johnson, not a good football player, and Xavier Legette, so far, not very good. Not ideal. Okay, what about Brian Burns? The Panthers had a golden opportunity to trade Brian Burns for apparently multiple 1st-round picks and a 2nd-round pick to LA. They said no, and they opted to FAFO. You know what that means, and they destroyed the relationship. to the point where they had no choice but to trade Brian for what wasn't a great return. They got a second-round pick in 2024, that pick swap, as I mentioned before, and then a fifth-round pick here in 2025. What happened to those picks? Well, that number 39 overall pick, that second-round pick that they got from that the second-round pick they got, not number 39, but that was something that they ended up they got picked. Sorry, they got number 39 from the Giants. That ended up going to the Rams, who wanted to trade up to get Braden Fisk from Florida State. They ended up then, because they did that trade, they were able to get a second-round pick this draft in 2025, which they eventually used to trade to Denver and got Nick Scorton. And then with the 2024 fifth-round pick, that was pick 141. That was the pick swap. Of course, that was used to trade up in the first round to get Xavier Legette. And then you look at it with the fifth-round pick this past year, they drafted Cam Jackson. So they parted ways with Brian Burns and ended up with Nick Scorton, Xavier Legette, and Cam Jackson. Now, if you want to look at that second-round pick that they sent to the Rams, be able to get that second-round pick in 25, and then when they moved it to Denver, that ended up with 4 different pick swaps there where they got Lathan Ransom and Jimmy Horn Jr. So you can throw those guys in there as well. But if you look at it, Scorton, jury's still out. Legette, again, not been great. Cam Jackson, jury's still out. Ransom, think's been a solid start. Horn hasn't played a single snap so far, but he will on Sunday. But if you just want to look at just where the pass rush is right now for Carolina, they're second to last in the NFL in PFF pressure percentage. Brian Burns right now apparently is tied for the lead in sacks in the NFL. He has 5 sacks, 20 pressures, and a 15.2 pressure percentage. Look at the other edge rushers here in Carolina. DJ Wonnum, who was the first guy to replace, or at least try to replace Brian Burns, 0 sacks, 9 pressures, and 11.0 pressure percentage so far this season. Princely Umanmielen, a rookie, so cut him some slack. 1 sack, 4 pressures, 8.3 pressure percentage. Nick Scorton, who trading away Burns directly led to 0 sacks, 4 pressures, 6.0 pressure percentage. Again, early on. But yeah, if Carolina had those guys, they would have no questions at quarterback. They would have one of the best running backs in the league, but one that you would not be able to trust health-wise. And they would probably have a better pass rush than they have right now. We can always wonder. But there's been very few teams in the NFL that have given up as many Pro Bowl caliber players like Carolina has via trade, like McCaffrey and Burns. And I know Moore's never been to one, but a good player. I have not seen very many teams give up that amount of talent in an effort to get better and to still be this bad. So yeah, there are some days where I think about what it could have been. Does it make me sick? Not necessarily. But yeah, it is a tad bit disappointing that things did not work out in Carolina's favor in those scenarios. And well, they really only have themselves to blame. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where on Sunday after the game, I want you to hit me up in my DMs or just at me over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council to get in next week's questions for the weekly Wednesday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, as always, keep pounding. And I will talk to y'all on Thursday as we will sit down with Kyle Krabs, the host of Locked On Dolphins, for another Locked On NFL crossover Thursday, brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks.